So this video is actually a request from my private Discord server where we were discussing a lot of common gym cell copes, like having to shave your head or using barbell exercises like the squats and deadlift and bulking up to get very bloated. And in particular, we were talking about ab training and how it can make even a mid physique look good. And that is true because when it comes to different muscle groups, there are gym cell muscle groups and there are also appeal muscle groups, right? The gym cell muscles can be stuff like traps, quads, or adductors, where you know if you ask a girl about like what these muscles are, a girl who doesn't go to the gym, then they probably won't know what it is. On the other hand, there are appeal muscle groups like biceps or probably like the lats and the abs, of course. And the abs is a very high appeal muscle group because even if you don't have a lot of total muscle mass on your body, if you just have defined and well developed abs, then you're going to have a very high appeal physique. And that's probably going to be higher appeal than most guys who spend a bunch of time in the gym building up their traps or doing heavy squats and stuff like that. So let's talk about how you can develop your abs and get really good abs like this. Firstly, you need to hypertrophy your abs, right? People talk about just getting abs are made in the kitchen and you have to be lean enough just for them to show. But if you don't have that muscle developed, then it's not going to show no matter how lean you get. So here I have a picture of a marathon runner who is very lean, right? Much leaner than Eddie Hall over here, but he has very low muscle mass, right? Very low muscle mass, not just in the abs, but in his whole body. So, and by the way, right, long distance running, you shouldn't be doing it, right? It's terrible for your hormones. It's terrible for your health. Don't do long distance running, right? Cardio in general just kind of sucks. But anyways, it's very lean and very low muscle. And you can see, even though he's super lean, you can't see any of the abs because the abs are just a muscle like every other muscle group. And if you don't have it developed, it's not going to show. On the other hand, this is Eddie Hall, right? He's not as lean as this guy. In fact, he's probably a lot higher body fat percentage, but you can see his abs are very defined because he has a lot of muscle, right? Very well developed muscle in his abs. So it's not just enough to get lean and abs are made in the kitchen, right? Abs are built in the gym and revealed in the kitchen. You have to actually develop the muscle group first as well. And this is also just a very good diagram for you, that you can see, right? You can see how if you develop the muscles in your abs and make them bigger, you can actually make them show at higher body fat percentages as well. But again, right, build them in the gym, reveal them by leaning down. So how do you actually build the abs? Well, I've tried a lot of ab exercises, right? From machine crunches, cable crunches, leg raises, and there's one specific exercise that I would rank as the single greatest one, the number one exercise, and that's going to be a decline sit-up with a weight behind your head. And in particular, right, just decline sit-ups in general are going to be the best exercise because they force spinal flexion. See, the problem with most ab exercises is that to train the abs effectively, you need spinal flexion. So what most people do is they would just flex their hip. So this is a person, and then they just flex their hip up like this, right? They lift their leg up thinking that's going to train the abs. But no, if you're lifting your leg up, flexing the hips, then that's just going to train the hip flexors. Instead, you have to actually flex the spine. I'm not sure if I can draw it that well. I flex the spine, spinal flexion. That is what's going to train the abs when you flex the spine like that. And the problem with all of these other ab exercises like leg raise or a machine crunch is that you can get away with not flexing your spine, right? It's really easy in like a leg raise to just lift your legs up and only use your hip flexors and never actually round the spine. Same thing with the machine crunches as well. But specifically with decline sit-ups, it basically forces you to flex your spine because if you want to get up, right, if your goal is to just sit up, then you want to shorten the moment arm between your body and this pivot point as you get up. And if you want to shorten this moment arm and get better leverage, then you would automatically just flex your spine because then you're shortening the moment arm and making the exercise easier. So basically, when you're doing decline sit-ups, especially if you're holding a weight up to your chest or behind your head, you basically always have to do spinal flexion. You're always forcing yourself to do spinal flexion, because when you do spinal flexion, you're shortening the moment arm and making it easier. This is something that's you can't do in pretty much any other ab exercise, because right, if you do a leg raise, you can just raise your leg without flexing your spine and only use your hip flexors. Same thing with a machine crunch. I remember using the machine crunch and I just couldn't feel it in my abs at all, because I was just using my hip flexors and I was just lifting my legs up without actually doing spinal flexion. But it's only when I started doing these decline sit-ups that it's like every single rep, right? Because if you want to get the weight up, you have to flex your spine. If you don't flex your spine and just use your hip flexors, it's going to be 10 times harder. So all you have to do is, instead of worrying about some cue of flexing your spine, if you do decline sit-ups, all you have to do is just sit up and you will automatically flex your spine to shorten the moment arm, and you'll automatically train your abs very, very well. And another good thing about decline sit-ups is that it's very stable, because another good exercise that people recommend is the cable crunch. But the problem with the cable crunch is that it's just a lot easier to mess up, right? And especially if you're a lighter body weight and you're crunching a lot of weight, then you can get thrown off balance as well. The cable crunch, it's just a lot easier to mess up. But with the decline sit-up, it's super stable and it's basically impossible to mess up. You just have to hold the weight either in front of you or behind your head. And all you have to do is just sit up and bring your chest up like that. And if you just do that, right, you'll always train your abs every single rep. It's basically the foolproof ab exercise, and it's literally the single best one I found. If you want to, you can do leg raises and stuff like that if you like it, but I would recommend including the decline sit-up at least in one of your workouts. And another good thing is you can progressive overload it, right? You can just use a weight and increase it by like 2.5 pounds or 5 pounds every time you've completed a certain rep range, and you can just reliably progressive overload. So what I would recommend is, goal to aim for is 15 to 20 kilos, and that's 30 to 45 pounds for 4 to 8 reps, right? That's going to be a really good standard. And behind the neck, because if you do behind the neck, it's going to be really, really hard. And if you can do that behind the neck to 4 to 8 reps, then you're going to have really well developed ab muscles, right? It's going to be really hard for you not to have developed ab muscles if you're doing like 40 pounds behind the neck decline sit-ups. And again, link in the description for my private Discord server. You can discuss training, optimal training, black pill, and stuff like that as well if you're interested. I'll see you in the next video.